right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I am extremely pleased to talk to Wayne Pearcy, who co-leads the excellent Pearcy Gratzmiller Jazz Quintet. He is a trumpet player and composer who gained fame globally in 2011 for placing second as a soloist at the ITG College Jazz Competition. He has studied with some of the greats, including Tiger Okoshi, Darren Barrett, and even Wynton Marsalis. In addition to his accomplished jazz career, Wayne is also heavily involved in classical music, performing on a natural trumpet. I'm going to ask him about that, what that is actually, and historical performance. Wayne is a strong advocate for assistive technology, and his work as a student and staff member at Berklee College of Music has helped the renowned institution become a top destination for visually impaired music students from all around the world. Hey, Wayne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
I'm so glad that you're here. To get another really amazing musician is such a treat. And I was still kind of really aglow with the Aaron Gratzmiller interview because I think that went well. And Aaron's a great musician. And describe your relationship with Aaron.
So Aaron and I, we met around, I'm trying to remember like when it actually was. It was around 2010. Around 2010 at Berklee, and we met doing a student recital. And it all kind of got started because I was kind of sitting in the room with him, and we were, working on this tune together for this recital, and I needed help with my I had like a little digital recorder, and I was going to use that to record the rehearsal. And I was just like, hey, can you tell me if this is working, and can you help me set the mic level? He's like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it looks like it's recording, and yeah, okay, it looks like you're good. And so we just sort of, sat there and we started playing together, and I don't know, we just like sort of ended up talking. And
did you guys share similar taste in music? Did you guys just kind of work together and kind of liked each other's sound and just went from there?
Yeah, that's how it started. I mean, we didn't really know much about each other's playing. We just sort of started playing together, and he was just like, wow, I really like the way you play. I like your sound and that sort of stuff. And so I got his number, and I don't know, I guess I just decided I'm trying to remember exactly. Like I just kind of like called him one day, and we started talking, and then I found out that he kind of liked some of the more traditional stuff too, some more of the like kind of traditional jazz, like sort of bebop, hard bop, that sort of thing. And so from that, we started hanging out. I was like, we should, like any Berklee student does. You were there too, Nick. Like, hey man, like let's jam. You sound killing. Like that whole thing.
That's the
like
language.
Totally
That's what people say at Berklee. Killing, and that's what
people say.
When I was at Berklee, it was always "That's what's up." That's what's up.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Exactly. So everybody's like, "Hey, man, this is killing. You sound killing." And like,
killing, yeah,
dude, this is sick. Like, we should have a session, man. And like, that's just like totally what people do.
That's great. That's great.
Through that and through just kind of our exploration of just playing together, and Aaron, was like, hey, it's always been my dream to have a jazz quintet. It's always been my dream, that we could, get together and write stuff, and maybe we could like, co-lead a band together and like that sort of thing. And I was just like, well, yeah, let's do that.
How do you balance co-leading a quintet? Is it a very collaborative venture?
Yeah, I think it's pretty collaborative, honestly. I think Aaron is better about actually making a little bit better about making sort of the administrative sort of calls, like he's kind of a little bit better about, applying for gigs and he's a little bit better about just kind of the business aspects of it. Like when we get together, sometimes we'll talk about, like, okay, this is what we could do, like, financially to kind of help manage things. And
I wish you guys every success because I think you guys sound good, and we definitely need more quintets of great musicians. I actually want to follow.
Yeah, we do.
I want to follow up that question with, musically speaking, who does the arrangements in that band? Like, who sits down and writes the arrangements, or how do you guys work that out? Do you have a model that you follow?
Not particularly. I don't know if there's like a hard-nosed, like, this is the arranger we use, like, this is the arranger we follow. I think, like, Aaron and I both have our own, kind of distinctive writing styles, and we try to, sort of combine those. We'll talk more about this later, but a few of the tunes in the group, I actually wrote before I even met him.
Oh, I see.
It just happened to be that I was writing quintet tunes, and he also wanted to do a quintet. It was kind of a coincidental thing.
When it comes to quintets, why a quintet and not a quartet or a sextet, or what's the reasoning behind that?
Well, quintet, it's cool because it's kind of it's minimalist in a way, but you have just enough harmony in the horns to do something interesting. So it's not the bigger, obviously, from taking arranging that the bigger the horn section you use, the bigger, the more things you have to notate, the more things you have to worry about. So with this, for playing the melodies and stuff, you can write some pretty cool harmony parts, and you can also do some arranging in the rhythm section underneath that. And then when the solos come, it's completely open, and you can just have the soloist improvise over the changes from the melody, or if you, depending on what your tune is like, you can create a new set of changes and make it more of like a vehicle for improvisation. What I was going to say earlier, just briefly, Nick, what I was going to say earlier is that some of the tunes, no, it's okay. The tunes that I wrote before I met Aaron, I actually had to have dictated by somebody because I didn't have any music technology skills.
I heard about this. I did some research. I was watching your videos online, and you would talk. This is a great show featuring the quintet. I'm not sure if the lineup is the same as that video. I think there was you have a different pianist now. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have
You have the great Matt Savage. Is that right?
Matt Savage.
Right.
Man, have you heard this kid? He is so killing.
I'm going to try and bring him on the show
as well.
All right,
guys, we're being Berklee kids again. Yeah, he's like totally.
I was saying,
absolutely killing.
back to that point of you were saying that you didn't have the assist. You weren't familiar with the technology. I think that was one of your answers. You were telling the host that you had to dictate it to someone, right? And that person had to write it down or by hand? Could you talk more about that?
So the person that wrote actually a couple different people, wrote things down for me. And they somebody at one point was writing by hand. There was one point where someone else was writing in finale. And just sort of doing it that way, so that I could, so that we could have all the, the tunes, and they, emailed me, like PDFs of a couple of the tunes, and so, since Aaron and I are doing our thing now, Aaron's been, kind of in charge of like making the charts look good. So if I do write anything by myself at this point, he makes sure the charts look right.
So would you say you're a Sibelius whiz now? Have you gotten pretty good at it?
I'm pretty good. I'm definitely pretty good at it. I feel personally much stronger in Sibelius than I do in, something like Pro Tools or something like that. But,
right.
Back then, I mean, it was, when you dictate to somebody, you have to do anything from like, tell them, okay, this is a quarter note here, this is an eighth note here, this is a 16th note here, to things like, actually singing, singing the notes for them and singing the rhythms and, having them, play it back for you and making sure that they got it.
Is it a very, is the old process very slow?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on who your scribe is too. If you're gonna dictate like that, it kind of depends on your scribe. Like, if the person has a really good ear, which luckily all the people that I've used, that I did use for that, they did have good ears on them and stuff. But if the person doesn't have a good ear as much, that's going to make things way harder. That's going to make things way harder. Some blind people do this different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually have a composer friend who's he's probably like 80 years old, and he's got a PhD.
No kidding.
And
wow.
He taught at Brevard College in North Carolina, and his name is Harvey Miller. He's he's just this wise old man who's just like amazing to talk to, and he's like, 12. He writes in like kind of a more of the 12-tone style, that sort of thing. But what he does is he writes his entire score, and that includes any drafts, any edits, like anything that he wants to do. He writes his entire score using Braille music, and then he goes back and puts it into Sibelius.
Okay, I have a question about that. Now, I'm sure most people know what Braille is. It is it's like reading. You use your fingers to touch raised dots, and then you're able to understand. Now, with Braille music, is it very similar?
It is. It is very similar. So it's the same 6-dot code as literary Braille, but it's obviously different. Dot combinations mean different things than they would in in literary Braille. So
is it a good system? Is it a can you read fast with Braille music?
Well, Braille is good, but Braille has its drawbacks. One of the biggest drawbacks, I think, with Braille, at least in modern times, is that we don't have very up-to-date solutions on how to, translate Braille music into print. There is one program that's distributed by a company called Dancing Dots. It's called Lime, like the fruit, like lime.
Right.
And it has like a Braille. Like if you were to write Braille music into it, it could back translate it into print and so on and so forth. If you opened a PDF or no, not a PDF, sorry. If you opened like a music XML file, it could translate it into Braille, and you could arrow through it, and not only would you see the Braille on a Braille display, but you would see you would hear the screen reader on the computer. You would hear JAWS read it to you.
Okay.
And it would play also. So you do get a lot of feedback. But the problem with that is that there's no Braille, back translation, or print to Braille or Braille to print translation in mainstream music notation software. And I think that would really help the user so much. And
would it be easy to implement that? Do you think is it just something people haven't done, or do you think there are some technical?
It is something people haven't done, but I do think it would be hard to implement. But we're in a kind of a sticky situation with music notation right now because Sibelius 5.25 is the latest version of Sibelius that's accessible, which we're on Sibelius 8. That's the current version of Sibelius that sighted people, have access to. And so Sibelius 5.25, and we can only use it on the PC. We cannot use Sibelius on the Mac at all.
I'm not sure if you're familiar, Wayne, with Dorico. I'm not sure if they have that kind of support too. That's the new Sibelius kind of competing app. But I'm getting the product manager, Daniel Spreadbury, to come on. I'm interviewing him next week. I could ask him, and that'd be very cool if I could ask him, what are you guys doing about assistive technology? That would be very cool.
Oh yeah, you should talk to. I mean, Daniel Spreadbury was on the original Sibelius team.
Right.
So he's fully aware of like kind of our struggles. The problem with, and Daniel will tell you the same thing too. Dorico is programmed with something. It's called QT. I think that's the code that they're using, and so QT is really hard for screen readers to access to the fonts and all the graphics and all that stuff. And unfortunately, obviously, the bigger majority of their audience is going to be, sighted users. And so, unfortunately, priorities have to happen, because they have to make money.
It's funny,
so,
this is important, but I think there's something in the jazz community. People are saying we need slashes first of all before they don't have slashes in Dorico.
yeah, exactly.
But, I'm interested in Dorico. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Really quickly, I just wanted to go back and talk about Braille music a little bit more, and a couple more that.
Actually, I have a question for you, Wayne, about that. I think just for the average person, I want them to be aware of kind of how that works. So let me give you a case example, and just tell me if it makes sense. So let's say there's a big band, and you're using Braille music. Can you sit in with the band and just read the chart with no problem? Would it allow you to do the same thing? So what are the so tell me how that works then. So would you need to read it beforehand?
So yeah, that's really the best thing you can do, because if you were to try to read in rehearsal, you would be playing your instrument with one, like a trumpet, of course, right?
With one hand, right?
You'd be playing with one hand, and you would be reading with the other, which you can do that, but it's not good for your wrist. And it also, since your pinky would be kind of compromised, inside of that little pinky ring on the lead pipe, you would really be compromising your valve technique, and you wouldn't be able to kick out your third valve slide for notes that are sharp.
Right.
For, I'm speaking in trumpet pitch, for C sharps and Ds. And I have a blind student who was going to a university in Florida that I've been mentoring for the past 3.5 years or so. And when she was in high school, her band program wasn't very strong. It wasn't a very strong band program, and so she was depending on reading Braille exclusively, and she was able to get away with the one-handed thing.
No kidding.
But when she got to college, you're looking at 2 hour-and-a-half long concert band concerts per semester, and music that's really, really challenging. And their sort of basis for accommodation for her was, let's give you Braille for everything. So Braille for music theory, Braille for brass studio, trumpet studio, Braille for brass ensemble, Braille for orchestra, Braille for band. And she called me one day and she was like, "Man, Wayne," she's like, "my wrist is hurting really bad." And I was like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Well, I'm trying to read all this stuff with, one hand and play with the other, and I'm just not able to keep up." And I said, "Hey, look, I've, tried to tell you before," and I'd talked to her about this before, and I said, "Look, you're not going to be able to read this stuff with one hand. It's just not going to happen. You've got to, one, start using your ears more, and two, you've got to memorize things beforehand before you get into that room. If you're going to use Braille, you've got to already have stuff memorized."
Right.
See, for rehearsals, I think in our situation using Braille, I think in rehearsals, we already need to have our parts learned.
Right.
That music director or whatever doesn't need to be worried about us. They need to be worried about everyone else. We need to already have everything learned and ready to perform. Or at least mostly ready to perform. If we make a few mistakes here or there, that's cool. But we always have to, because Braille is so much more challenging, and because of, blindness kind of being, more of a challenge in the written music world, we need to be 2 steps ahead of everyone else.
I have a question about the general repertoire, Wayne. So how much music, would you say a lot of the music out there in the world is been done for Braille? So, like, let's say most of the classical repertoire, can you find Braille from pretty much everything?
No, sadly. There's a good number of Braille scores and things like that for piano. And there's some things out there for guitar. There's definitely a good many things out there for voice and things like that. For other instruments like trumpet, for instance, there's more than there used to be, but there's not nearly as much as there could be or should be. And that was one of the other things I was going to mention about one of the modern day challenges of Braille music is that there aren't enough scores out there that you can go, download an electronic, Braille format and just be able to read it, or, open those scores in a music notation program of your choice, like, Finale or Sibelius or whatever, and have those be converted into Braille, or audio or both.
Forgive my ignorance. So music can be Braille ready in a PDF, and do you have a special printer that prints out the indentations?
So there is, and you can actually, you can find them online pretty easily. It's called a Braille embosser, and that would print out hard copy Braille. So generally, if you were, you couldn't embed Braille into a PDF. It doesn't really work that way. But there are, file formats out there. One of them is called BRF, and a BRF file will, you can open it in a program called Duxbury, and you can print it out. You can print it out that way. Alternatively, if you open a music XML document in Lime, you would be able to emboss that in hard copy Braille, as well as view that on a refreshable Braille display, which, if you're not familiar with what a refreshable Braille display is, it's actually like a little, it's a device that would sit in front of your computer or in front of your keyboard, or some people have it below, depending on how their desks are set up. And, plugs in through USB or whatever. And it actually has pins that little tiny pins that are exactly the size of Braille dots. And,
wow.
And it pokes the pins pop up as the text on your screen changes.
Wow, that's very cool.
So you can actually use a Braille display to navigate your entire system, your entire computer.
Wow.
And
remarkable.
Some of the newer Braille displays actually have Braille, 8-dot Braille keyboards on them. So you can actually type in Braille on your Braille display and have it instantly, the operating system knows what to do with that. And, you can, type your whole, your Word documents and all that stuff. Duxbury, the program I mentioned earlier, that's a program anyone can use, not just necessarily musicians. People can open up and Word documents to Duxbury and have Duxbury translate them into Braille, and you can format them in Duxbury and then print them out and that sort of thing.
That's awesome.
So Duxbury is definitely a useful tool for a lot of people, including Braille transcribers and things like that.
You're doing a great job as a mentor and helping a lot of people. Because you said in an interview yourself, it was harder when you were a student, right? And I think
sure.
Through your efforts, you've definitely made the journey a lot easier for a lot of the younger people out there who need this help.
Absolutely. When I was a student at Berklee, I mean, we didn't have this lab. We didn't have the music technology course. Berklee's version of accessibility was, you don't have to take arranging. You don't have to. Actually, no, we won't let you take arranging. Yeah. We won't let you do this or that, or, we don't have this ear training book for you in Braille. So, just, go meet with your teacher during office hours and, just kind of find your own strategies.
In a way, you were kind of a pioneer in this regard, for kind of changing the system.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's very interesting because I needed the skills myself.
Right.
But I also needed to advocate for the rest of the students who were, the students who were there and the students who would be coming after. And it was really kind of a strange experience. And to kind of be in both sort of the advocacy and like the, sort of the, hey, this is what we need to do role. And sort of but I need you to teach me this at the same time. It was kind of a weird conundrum I was in.
I guess you were thrown into a situation where it just didn't have the facilities, and through your efforts and other people as well who made a difference in Berklee, and Berklee's much better now, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had to, go. I spent 2 years, at least 2.5 years, off and on, when I would register for classes, or when I would go see the disability services coordinator for different things. I would definitely try to come up with ideas and tell him, hey, like, this is what we need to do. And it wasn't just me. There was another blind student. His name is Özgür Altınak, and he's from Turkey. And we went to school together, and we ended up being close friends for a little bit. And he was totally blind as well. And he was trying to do electronic production and design, which is, for those of you guys who don't know, it's one of the majors at Berklee, and they used to call it music synthesis. That was what it was called back when I started Berklee. So being able to program your own synthesis, your own your own sounds, being able to create your own different software plugins, like all kinds of different things, sound design for film and all that kind of stuff. So he was trying to do that, but I think he eventually dropped EPD because there were just too many accessibility hurdles, and people didn't really always know how to help him. So I think he ended up with performance. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's what ended up happening. So my point with all that to say, both of us spent quite a number of afternoons with the disability services coordinator, telling him why this was important for us to have a program for blind students, and why Berklee needed to get on board with that. So finally, in 2009, we had a technology summit, and we included a lot of professional blind musicians from the industry. There's a guy who used to run a center called the National Resource Center on Braille Music, David Goldstein. There was Bill McCann, who is the owner and CEO of Dancing Dots, the company that I mentioned earlier, who created, who distributes Lime and the Lime Aloud scripts, which allows Lime to be read, using a screen reader. And he also sells Cakewalk Sonar and Cakewalk Sonar scripts that would make it accessible for JAWs, although that most people have migrated over to Pro Tools now. So
it's fantastic that you can get these national figures to come in and really change the scene. Right. And there was also Janice Kent, who is no longer with us. She was a certified Braille music transcriber for the Library of Congress. And then her husband, Gordon Kent, who, did some consulting work for Bill McCann, and also it was a independent audio engineer and producer. And so, heavy hitters, Mike Mandel, who is a good friend of mine who lives in New York, older guy, who writes for television and film. And all of these guys were affiliated with a group from the American Council of the Blind called Friends in Art. And so through that, they helped us, get the leverage we needed to convince Berklee that, hey, this is what we need to do.
And this is important, accessibility wise for your students. I had an amazing harmony teacher. His name was Rick Kress, and Rick was he's just an amazing man all around, like just beautiful person, like just really, really, really wonderful. And I remember, he would just bend over backwards, like do anything I needed. He would, spend extra time with me.
I remember the teachers being really nice. I remember in Berklee, the teachers just being so good, so nice, and being so helpful. Just in general, I think in Berklee, it was a really nice environment.
Yeah, he was good too, because he was also he got a lot of blind students because he was so accommodating, and he was really good about like understanding like why I was frustrated and why I thought about because I told him a couple times, I'm like, Rick, I don't know if I can stay here, like, because I just, there's so many things I'm getting here that I'm not getting here, and Rick was totally understanding, and Rick gave me a lot of the encouragement that I needed to, really push forward and
I
really
remember
try to,
before like this whole laptop like revolution and stuff. I mean, Berklee was around, and you probably had to like write down things, for your assignments. Now when I was there, you had to submit a file, like a finale file or something, right? You had a technological requirement. So that could have been a big problem, right?
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, it was because, of course, none of the faculty know how to support a student using a screen reader. And in a lot of cases, Nick, that's still the case today. I mean, faculty, there are some faculty out there who kind of know, like, who had blind students now, like Arnold Friedman, for instance, who's also just amazing. He knows, like, oh, I should either, do my assignments, write them out for the students in Sibelius so that they can open it right away, or I need to send them a music XML file from Finale so that they can, open it in Sibelius, or, that sort of thing. So teachers are getting more hip to the accommodation part of it. But our class that we have now for blind students would, in effect, replace the MTech 111 Intro to Music Technology course requirement. But the beauty of our class is that since it does take blind students longer to do things, the benefit of our class is that we can actually take that class as many times as we need to. So if we wanted to take it one semester, we could take that. We could do that. If we wanted to do it 2 semesters, we could do that. If we wanted to do it 3, 4, 5, 6 semesters, we could take it every semester if we felt that there were things that we needed.
Right, absolutely.
That specific semester for a specific thing. And generally, most of our blind students need to take it at least
absolutely.
2 or 3 times. And we actually recommend that blind students come in to the 5-week program in the summer before they start Berklee in the fall, so that way they can already, because we offer our program in 5-week too, so they can already get a handle on some of the music technology and get situated, so that when fall hits, they're like, they're in their Harmony 1 class or Harmony 2 or whatever, and they're not going like, I don't know how to open Sibelius, I don't know how to create a new score, that sort of thing.
You are employed at Berklee right now, right? You're assistant.
I am. Yeah, I'm part-time. I'm a part-time employee. So our instructor, the actual course instructor, his name is Chi Kim, Chikim, and he's from Korea, and he's a Berklee alumni. He did CWP as an undergrad, and then he went to NYU for his master's and did music technology there. And so when he went to Berklee, he was able, just because of his, resourcefulness and everything, he was able to teach himself all of the software and be able to kind of get himself through all of his, core curriculum. But not everyone is able to do that. You know,
yeah,
that's the thing. Not everyone is able to quite be that resourceful. And when I got started at Berklee, I already, I was, in an ensemble. I was, doing private lessons. I was doing, all this stuff. And I had a recital my first semester when I was a student there. And so it was just kind of a big thing. And it was unfortunate too, because I had only a week's worth of music technology training before I got into Berklee. And then my state agency, who was supposed to buy all my adaptive equipment for me, they took 6 weeks at least to get me my computer. So you're looking at almost midterms first semester by the time I got my technology. So where do you think that week of music technology skills went? Right out the window. Gone. Completely gone. And yeah, and the thing about this is kind of unfamiliar for most of your listeners, but state rehabilitation agencies for dealing with blind and visually impaired clients and stuff like that, they often have a very limited budget, and if for whatever reason they approve you technology training, it's really hard to get approved for more. Oftentimes you have to really fight with your counselor tooth and nail and their supervisor. And some people just flat don't ever get what they need from their rehabilitation agencies. And that's really unfortunate.
What's the future like for a blind music student?
Well, I think that, certainly things are better than they were. There's still a lot more that needs to happen. We definitely need more up-to-date. The biggest thing that needs to happen is we need more up-to-date technological solutions for music notation. Music notation is such an important part of any student's musical education. And
I agree.
And that being said, blind students don't need to be missing out on that. And we're doing great with Pro Tools accessibility. Actually, there's a program that in addition to the built-in accessibility that Avid has done, she is actually working with a couple of other guys on an additional program that kind of runs alongside Pro Tools, and it's called Flow Tools, and that gives blind students, blind musicians additional, screen reader access and a lot of keyboard shortcuts that make using Pro Tools a lot easier. And it's kind of a big deal. Like, it's really, really been a game changer. And that started being developed at Berklee, which is really, really amazing.
In a way, it affects all of us because all kinds of assistive technology, they filter down and help everyone, So any strides,
absolutely,
any strides in this direction just really helps all of mankind, So it's great, it's fantastic.